Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I'm your own personal sales maven here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master that sales conversation. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to respond to a no from a prospect. Before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to somebody who left me a 5-star review on the podcast. This review is written by Alise Tagger. Alise, thank you so much. It says, Nikki Rausch is the Maven of sales. Nikki has completely changed my mindset from hating sales to absolutely loving it. She's always a wealth of information. Her books are outstanding, and the podcast is all that and more. I just subscribed and suggest you do the same. Thank you, Alise. That means the world to me. And as a listener, if you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, please do so. I would be extremely grateful. And if you're so inclined, please rate and review the podcast. And I just may read your review on air. All right. Let's get into the content today, which is how to respond to a no from a prospect. It's going to happen. You're going to get told no. As a matter of fact, anytime somebody reaches out to me and I start asking them, like, what's your close rate? And having discussions like that, anytime somebody tells me, oh, I have 100% close rate, I get nervous. I get really nervous for them. I feel like there's something amiss in their offer. You should not be getting 100% close rate. Typically, that usually means your pricing's out of whack. It's time to raise your prices. Not everybody's a client. Not everybody should be saying yes to you. And yet getting told no can be a little uncomfortable, which is why I decided to record this episode for you today to talk about what's some language to say in a few different scenarios that could happen. So you're ready when these do arise, you know what to say, you feel confident, and you can just handle it kind of like water off a duck's back. Not a big deal when you get a no. Even if there's a part of you inside that's feeling like, wah, wah. I get it. It's hard to be told no sometimes. And also give grace to the person who is telling you no, as long as they're doing it in a nice, kind way, because it can be hard to tell somebody no. I will at some point record an episode of how to say no to somebody who asks you for their business, because I think it's also important to have some language on that side to be on the other side. So I will do an episode of that sometime in the near future. But for today, there are 3 scenarios that I'm going to cover and give you some language around them. So the first scenario is that you are cold reaching out to people. You haven't necessarily received any interest from them. They haven't indicated their interest, but yet you think you have something that would serve them in some way, and you've reached out and they have declined to take another step with you, or they maybe just said no to working with you, or no to even hearing about your offer. It's going to happen, especially those of you who are in business building where you're reaching out to corporate and like corporate type clients, and you're doing a lot of that cold calling. Now, I know there was an episode that I recorded not too long ago, which was how to reach those prospects. So if you haven't listened to that episode and you are doing some cold calling, I would recommend that one. I think that is episode 18. So again, you've reached out to them. They have declined moving forward with you. What do you say? My suggestion is that you say, if something were to change in the future with my offer or with the opportunity, would it be okay to check back with you one more time? And then you wait and you see what they say. If they give you the no, don't ever call me again, then please respect that and move on. I actually don't believe in chasing clients. I think it is detrimental to your mindset. I also think that it's an incredible waste of time. So move on. Just move on to the next prospect. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that your offer is wrong. It just means they don't have a need, a want, or an interest, and that's okay. I will say in these situations, you want to avoid alienating clients by ignoring their lack of interest and just plowing through anyways. I think we have all been on the receiving end of saying no to somebody and having them just plow right through and ignore it, and or somebody who has gone out of their way to make you feel like there's something wrong with you in some way for declining their offer. I know I worked with a woman who had shared with me that a strategy that she was taught is that when somebody says no, declines working with you, that the strategy that somebody had taught her is that you go into that shaming mode of like, why would you possibly decline this when it's something that could help you? And I was cringing when she was sharing this with me, and I was like, oh, how's that working? And she's like, it doesn't work for me. It really turns people off, and it's totally against like my whole process of how I feel comfortable engaging with people. So we were a good fit because I don't believe in doing that. I don't teach doing that. Like, you shouldn't be shaming people who say no to you. So again, just go back with, if something were to change in the future, would it be okay if I check back with you, at a later date? And then you wait and see what they say. If they say yes, great. Go ahead and circle back with them when something has changed, when you have something new to offer, or maybe there's a special promotion going on. Then go ahead and circle back with them. Have a legitimate reason for circling back with them. I think that's important. Now, another scenario that I want to talk about is the one that I think happens often. Somebody has given you a potential buying signal. Now, I did a whole episode on buying signals. This is episode 4. It's titled How to Recognize Buying Signals. If you haven't listened to that yet, I would suggest listening to it because learning how to recognize buying signals is crucial to your success. So let's say somebody has given you a buying signal. You've issued the invitation, like I teach in that episode, and then they've declined. And in those moments, when somebody gives me a buying signal, and I'm pretty sure this is a legit buying signal and I'm checking it out, and then they decline working with me, my brain just says, not yet. That's all it says. Like, I just go, not yet. So in that particular case, I am going to say to them, great. If something ever changes, please reach out. I'll be happy to hear from you. Because I also know that I'm going to put myself back in a situation to be back around this person or engage with them in some way. That may not be an overt sales approach, but it'll be an opportunity. If I see them somewhere, I'm going to make an effort to go and talk to them. If we're at a networking meeting, or if I see something that I can engage with them on social media, I will do that, because buying signals tend to come back around. If somebody has a legitimate interest in you and they decline, there's usually an opportunity where something can come back around. So I just try to make those opportunities happen. And then I wait for the next buying signal, and then I issue another invitation. I don't think I've shared this story on the podcast before. I've shared it a million times in the teachings that I do on buying signals. But I remember years ago meeting a woman at a networking event, and we set up a time to do like a coffee chat, get to know each other better. And so we met at this coffee shop and we had a great conversation, and she was telling me all about what she was, what she did. And then she asked me, to tell her a little bit about what I did. And as I was explaining what I did, she said, oh, I know some people who would benefit from working with you. So I hear that as a buying signal. And I said, great. That would be amazing. I would love to connect with them. Would you be willing to make an introduction on my behalf? And then I followed up with an invitation to her. I said, now, is there some way that I might be a resource to you? And she said, oh, Nikki, I have been in sales for 22 years. I don't think there's anything new I could learn about sales. And I was like, great. Totally respect that. Hey, if something were ever to change, please let me know. We went on with the conversation, and then fast forward a couple weeks, I was doing a free training, and she had signed up to take part in the free training, which I thought was interesting. I thought, oh, well, maybe she's just trying to support me, or also I was thinking like, why is she signing up for this when I'm teaching selling skills? She's already said she doesn't need any help with selling skills, but okay. So she signs up and participates. And then I see her at an event a little while later, and I come into the room and she's across the room and she like makes a beeline for me. And she comes right over to me. She like grabs my hands and she says, Nikki, that training that you gave was amazing. I learned some new things from you. So I hear that new buying signal. I said, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm teaching a 5-week course. This was back years ago when I taught a 5-week course. All of those courses, by the way, are now in the Sales Maven Society. So that's where all those courses are housed. And I said, I'm teaching a course, 5-week course. It's about to start. Is that something you might be interested in? And she goes, yeah, no, I'm not really interested in taking a class. And I said, oh, okay. Is there ever a chance that you'd want to work together privately? And she goes, maybe. So I hear that as a buying signal. So I issue the invitation again. I follow up. But she ended up saying yes, and we schedule a time to work together. And we have a really great session. At the end of the session, she gives me a whole new buying signal. And so I invite her to the 5-week course. She said something about, there was something that we worked on privately that she particularly liked. And I said, I teach like one of the weeks is all on this topic. Is this something you might like to take part in? And she said, oh, it's summer and my grandkids are coming and I just don't really have time for that kind of stuff. And I said, oh, okay, great. If something changes, let me know. And we brought our session to a close and we went about our way. And fast forward a couple months, and I was teaching a class again on sales. It was actually the same class that she had signed up for that few months back. I was teaching that for an organization here locally, and she showed up in the room. And people had to pay to come to this training, not pay me, but they were paying the organizers of the event. And so I thought, well, that's so interesting that she's in the room. And she sat in the very front row, like right in front of me. And she listened. And after the class, she came up to me at the end. And I was talking to 3 or 4 ladies at the time. And she kind of waited off to the side, and she waited a really long time to talk to me. And then she came over, she grabbed my hands again, and she was like, Nikki, I want to learn how to talk like you. And I said, oh, thank you so much. Like, what specifically was it that I said that you were interested in? And so she had explained it. And I said, just so happens this 5-week course, I teach a whole section around language. Is that something you would like to take part in? And she goes, oh, I'm starting this new job. I just don't really think I have time for a class. And I said, oh, okay, great. No problem. Hey, if something changes, we'd love to have you with us. Let me know. And I left it at that, because you hear, like, I'm going through these buying signals, but you also hear that she's giving me a no. And I'm not pushing back anytime she gives me a no. It's kind of like, oh, okay, well, if something changes, let me know. Like, it's really light. And I get home that night after this course, after teaching that training, and I have an email from her. And she says, Nikki, I'm in for the class. Call me in the morning. I'll give you my credit card. So the thing about the buying signals and getting a no, and this is why I was saying when somebody gives me a buying signal and they tell me no when I invite them, I always just say not yet, because there is an opportunity for them to come back around. Now, they might not ever come back around if you miss the buying signal, if you don't issue the invitation. But the thing about people telling you no is everybody has what's known as a convincer strategy. And this comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming. You have one, I have one, and it's all context specific. So in certain parts of your life, you might have to say no to something. So a convincer strategy is a certain number of times you have to say no before you say yes. So we just need to know what people's convincer strategies are. And the way that you get to their convincer strategy is when they give you a buying signal, you issue the invitation, and then they say no, and then you wait for the next one and it comes back around and you issue an invitation again as well. So the idea is we don't know how many times somebody's convincer strategy is. Like sometimes people don't know themselves, right? And again, I said it's context specific. There are certain areas of my life where I can hear about something and be like, I am so in on that, and I will spend money and I won't need to like think about it, research it. Like I'm in. And there's other areas of my life where I might hear about something and I might go, I don't really think that's for me. And then I see or hear something about it again, or somebody talks about it to me. And then I'm like, maybe I should consider that. And then something happens again. And then pretty soon I'm like, okay, I'm in, whatever it is, I'm buying it. So that's like the convincer strategy that I have in certain contexts. I may have shared this on the podcast before. I know the convincer strategy of my husband is 1 year for any big decisions that we make in our life, any big changes. His convincer strategy, it's not a certain number of times. His is time. He likes to think about things. He likes to ponder and decide over a long period of time. So I learned this very early on. We've been together for 15 and a half years. And I was really in the like heart of studying neurolinguistic programming when our relationship was really blossoming. And so I paid a lot of attention to what was going on in our relationship and applied the things that I was learning from my NLP training. So once I understood that his convincer strategy was 1 year, now anytime that I would like for us to have some big change in our life, I know I've got a year of work to do. Now, it isn't this like bug him for it, because that's not going to work. That would completely shut him down. But it is this idea that I'll bring it up, he'll dismiss it. And then I'll wait for the next opportunity, and I might bring it up again in a different way, and he'll dismiss it again, right? And over the course of the year, by the end of the year, oftentimes he's like, I had this idea. We should do this. And I'm like, really? Yeah, we totally should. That's a really good idea. He sometimes listens to the podcast, so he's totally going to call me out on sharing this story, but it is true. This is his convincer strategy. It's about a year long. So knowing that, I'm willing to stay in it. And I'm also okay to get told no, right? Because again, back to this idea that once you understand, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be, a fight. It doesn't have to be me trying to convince him to change his mind. And it's the same in any sales situation. Your job is to not try to change somebody's mind or convince them that they're wrong and that your way is the right way. As a matter of fact, that's going to alienate people. That's not going to be a rapport builder. So look for those opportunities when they come back around, and don't take it so like to heart if the answer is no in that moment. All right. So here is a third potential opportunity where somebody could tell you no, and that it's important to have a response to it. This usually comes in the selling staircase when you have gotten to step 4 and step 5 in the selling staircase. The step 4 being the proposal, step 5 being issuing the close language. So we've gotten all through the steps. We've done our due diligence. We have walked somebody through the selling staircase, and we've gotten to the place where we've made a proposal, we've issued close language, and then they decline. It's going to happen. It does happen. But there is a part of you that might be wondering, like, how did we get so far? And like, I was so sure that they were going to say yes, and then they said no. So in those moments, the response, the language that I would love to offer you to have in your back pocket is to say to somebody, is it okay to ask your reason for declining? Now, when you ask that, is it okay to ask your reason for declining? What you do with your voice and how you do anything to do with your facial expressions, your body language is going to be really crucial here, because if you act defensive about it, you're going to alienate that person. But if you get really curious and you follow up with this, is it okay to ask your reason for declining? go into that particular scenario of being curious and looking for what would you do differently next time. So again, not acting like, well, I'm going to change your mind or I'm going to convince you, to buy from me, because that again is super off-putting to people. So it's okay to ask your reason for declining. And then, this is known as a softening phrase. When you say, is it okay to ask? Most of the time when you say, is it okay to ask? And then you have like this tiny little pause between the next part of the statement. Most of the time people will start to shake their head yes, or they'll start to give you an indicator of like, yeah, of course, go ahead and ask. Now, it doesn't mean that they'll answer. It doesn't mean that they'll give you the full answer as to why they're declining either. They may not feel comfortable revealing it to you. But if you ask in a really curious way, they're much more likely to share with you like their reason for declining. And it could be that you've missed a step with them. It could be that you broke rapport in some way and didn't realize it. So I will say, if you're going to ask this question, be prepared for receiving the answer and receiving it in a way that doesn't break the rapport, doesn't, damage the relationship. That means don't have a like visceral, big, mean response if somebody tells you no. I don't think I've shared this story on the podcast. I might have actually in one of the episodes. This is the blessing and the curse, and that I teach so much and I train so often that I tell a lot of my stories. And now I'm like, I don't know if I've told this on the podcast. So maybe you won't mind hearing it again if you've heard it before. And maybe this will be the first time you're hearing it. Years ago, a woman reached out to me and she wanted to sell me some product. And she also said that she wanted to hire me to do some speaking for a group that she ran. And she said, would it be okay if I send you an email and share about this product? And I'll also get back in touch with you about scheduling a time for us to talk about having you come and speak. And I said yes to both of them. And then she reached out to me and said, can we schedule a time to chat? And I was assuming, this is my mistake, I was assuming that she wanted to chat with me about scheduling a time to speak to her group. Well, in actuality, when we got on the phone, she wanted to talk to me about reviewing her product line. And she said, I wanted to ask if you'd had a chance to look at the email that I sent you and watch the videos attached. And I said, oh, I don't remember getting an email from you. And I was actually sitting at my computer and I started searching and I was like, I don't have an email from you. I'm sorry. I didn't see the email and I definitely didn't watch any videos. Side note, I hate when people send me videos to watch. I'm not a watcher of videos by nature. And when somebody tries to sell me through a video, like I'd rather have a real conversation with somebody about earning my business than having them tell me to watch a 20, 30 minute video about their product and how awesome it is. So anyway, so I said, no, I didn't get the email. And she was actually at her computer too. And she looked up and she was like, oh, I sent it to the wrong, Nikki. And I said, oh, okay. Well, yeah. So should we schedule a different time? Did you want to talk about the speaking? And she's like, well, could you just go to this website? And so I went to the web address that she asked and she's like, she starts walking me through and there were like 5 videos that she wanted me to watch. It probably totaled an hour and a half worth of time. So I can tell you right now, I'm never going to watch an hour and a half of time for somebody to sell me on something that I didn't really have any interest in to begin with. So I said, oh, well, I don't really have time to watch these videos. Is there something you'd like to just share with me? So then she's like, well, go to this page and then click on this thing. And we went through it was like multiple steps. And about 15 minutes of her, she couldn't figure out the right web address and she couldn't figure out where to tell me to click. And I think she was giving me the wrong information. And then when we finally got to the right information, her product line popped up and it was hundreds of dollars for this product. And again, I had not indicated in any way that I was interested in the product. And so she said, well, which package would you like to buy? which by the way is something called an assumptive close. And I will probably do an episode on assumptive close. There's a time to use it and there's a time to not use it. In this particular case, this was not the appropriate time to use an assumptive close. Like, which package would you like to buy? And I was like looking at it and I said, well, after kind of going through this with you and hearing a little bit more and looking at the packages, I can say that this is not a good fit for me. So I'm going to decline, but I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And she goes, wait, what? You're not going to buy? And I said, no, I don't think this is the right product for me. But again, thank you so much for sharing it. And she's like, so you're not going to buy? And I said, no. And she goes, okay, well, good luck. And she hung up on me. I remember being stunned, but also like very, I thought it actually was quite funny. And of course I love to have stories, obviously, because I tell stories all the time when I teach and on the podcast too. So I love that she kind of hung up with this, like she was super offended by my no. And the whole idea was, it would have been okay for her to say, is it okay to ask your reason for declining? I would have given her an honest answer. But her acting like she was offended that I wasn't going to buy or that I owed her my business in some way was like really what it was. It was the kiss of, there's never a chance in heck that I will ever do business with this woman. And as a matter of fact, even though she didn't want me to come speak to her group after that, I wouldn't have even gone to speak to her group, even if she had asked me, because I was so put off by her attitude around the no. So again, I've given you some scenarios here and some language of, 3 different times where a prospect might tell you no, and then how to respond. But please always take it with this idea of like, relationship first, rapport always. Keep your professional composure intact when somebody says no to you. Even if you're shocked, even if you're disappointed, even if you're like, I can't believe I wasted time on this, dud, and having them not buy from me, but keep your professional composure intact. Because sometimes I can think of many situations where somebody has declined working with me only to then turn around and change their mind, like the example that I gave, the story of the woman who told me no a bunch of times before she said yes, her convincer strategy, or where somebody has said no to me and then referred a new client to me. Because maybe it wasn't a good fit for them, but they found somebody who was a good fit and then sent them my way. So when you get told no, make sure you keep your professional composure, handle it with grace, and then, get off the phone or in the meeting or, go back out to your car, whatever that is, and let your disappointment show through then when the person who said no isn't around to see it or experience it. We all have bad days. We all make mistakes. Believe me, I do as well. Have moments where I say things or, I actually have like one of my biggest struggles is that things really show up on my face. Sometimes things that I don't intend for others to see. And so I have to really pay attention to that, especially in these situations where somebody might tell me no, so that I'm not sending the signal of like, oh my gosh, you've just ruined my day, or how dare you tell me no, or any of those situations. You just got to keep your professional composure intact. And sometimes the way to do this is to just thank the person for their time, wish them well, bless and release. And it's okay, and move on, because not everybody's a client. All right. I hope this was helpful to give you some additional language around what to say when somebody says no, and to really think about the way that you are paying attention, issuing invitations, checking in with people, prospecting, and then walking them through the selling staircase so that you always feel confident in your responses. Sending good wishes to you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.